Hi guys, welcome back. So today I'm finally going to be walking you guys through my entire filming process. This is the very first video of mine that you guys happen to come across. I'm Danny and I switched over to YouTube to start vlogging exactly a year ago. I even have proof of it because over the weekend it was my channel's very first birthday. So it's been about a year. I've grown about like 15,000 subscribers since then. I am not a filmmaker. I don't have any kind of like filming background. I've learned everything on my own. I have technically been a content creator for like the past 4 to 5 years, but the first like 4 years I was only doing short form content. So long form content was definitely something that was like completely new for me. So now that it's been like about a year, I thought it would be the perfect time to share with you guys all the stuff that I've learned this past year and basically what I kind of wish I knew when I started on YouTube exactly 1 year ago. Before we jump into the topics, I did want to share with you guys the guide that I made. It is called the YouTube Blueprint to Better Vlogs. It has all the information that I'm going to be talking about in this video and so much more, from literally how I plan a video to how I film, to how I edit, and to how I upload. My goal with creating the guide was really to give you like a step-by-step walkthrough of my exact YouTube process. And I made it with the intention that by the end of the guide, so after you complete the whole thing, you will have a YouTube video uploaded. I really tried my best to make it as practical as possible because I feel like when it comes to vlogging, there really isn't like any kind of like formal structure. And I do feel like a lot of the information out there doesn't really give you that like skeleton of like exactly what you need to think about or things that you should be including in your vlog. Pretty much I really tried to create it in a way that hopefully will give you like a very balanced outlook into YouTube and like what kind of YouTube channel that you want to grow long term. I also tried my best to include a lot of examples from like my own YouTube channel, like breaking down my actual thought process and like certain things I thought about that I implemented into those videos that I found very helpful and effective. That's just my, little blurb about my guide. No pressure at all to go check it out, but it is linked down below if you guys are interested. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment them down below. I personally think that this video is going to be like a really nice supplement to the guide just because you'll be able to see things a lot more visually. But for the sake of this particular video, I'm only going to be talking about like my filming process, and I want to make this like a super short mini series. So the next video I will do part 2, and that will be my entire editing process. I hope that makes sense. Again, let me know if you guys have any questions. And with that, let's get on with the rest of the video. Let's jump into the very first topic, which is to make a filming plan. So my general overview of my entire planning workflow can be broken down into 3 steps. First one being like super simple, and it's just to have a dedicated note on your like notes app on your phone, because I like to be able to have access to it anywhere I am, like on my laptop, on my phone, on my tablet. I just leave it in the notes app. It's very simple. It does not need to be pretty at all. And it's just capturing any kind of idea that comes. There's just been so many times where I remember I had like a really good idea for a YouTube video concept, and then I didn't write it down and I just like completely forgot about it, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. So this is just to like really help avoid that, because I feel like as you like live your life, those waves of inspiration come very randomly. So you just want to be able to capture them exactly when they come and not forget about them later. And then step 2 is to take any of your video ideas from your notes app, or maybe you just like wanted to pursue something the same day that you just like randomly thought of, on just regular pen and paper. I like to keep them in these little A5 notebooks. I get these off of Amazon. You guys might have seen me talk about these particular Midori notebooks like a bunch of times because this is like my 3rd or 4th one. I'm just really obsessed with these particular notebooks. But the reason why I really like conceptualizing on a notebook is because it just gives you that freedom to be able to express your ideas in a very fluid way. And I find, especially when I try to do it digitally, I start to see like more flaws of my concept. And I just find it like really hard to be like flexible and come up with as many ideas as possible in terms of like what I want to put into the vlog. This is like the time when you like put on your headphones, you go into like your artist mode, and you just like write down anything that you want to go into this video, no matter how stupid, no matter how silly it is. And at least for me, I have been like genuinely so surprised by like some of the ideas that have come out of that. It's just like a very freeing feeling. I don't really know how to describe it, but it really helps. And then thirdly, this is like, obviously a contrast to the second one, but we got to put them in like a digitalized way. So for me, what I really love using is this platform called Milanote. You guys have, heard me talk about them a million times. This video is like not sponsored by them, but it's genuinely what I use for every single YouTube video that I plan. The way I would describe it is almost like a digital bulletin board. Like you can add photos, you can write little notes, almost like a sticky note that you like put on top of like a bulletin board. You can even draw on it if you have like an iPad. You can make checklists, bullet point lists, you can link products, you can also like link actual YouTube videos that you can actually watch on the platform itself. So it has a lot of elements where it gives you that structure to stay very organized with your plan, but it also has the flexibility of being able to like move things around and just like really creatively express yourself and like see your video come to life. I feel like Milanote is like the best platform ever that allows you to do all of those things that I just mentioned. You can also create templates, and I do have a dedicated Milanote YouTube channel template for planning out all of my videos. The template is a part of the guide. It honestly makes the most sense with the guide, which is why I didn't really want to separate the two. So yeah, if you want to check it out, it is again linked in my description box below. Because I already have a lot of videos already up on my filming setup and all the equipment that I use, I am not really going to go super detailed into it, but what I will talk about as far as like equipment goes is little tips and tricks on how my setup is so that it is a lot easier for me to film and vlog. I shoot with a shutter speed 1/50 and 24 frames per second, which basically gives me the most cinematic, real life kind of look. Other little things is I do not shoot in D-Log or any kind of like washed out color profile. I just like to keep things really, really simple, but the little tweaks that I've made is anytime that I'm shooting, I always try to make sure to set my white balance. I pretty much will take a white balance card like this, and my particular camera, which is the Sony a7C, allows me to custom set my white balance. So that just makes sure like all of my coloring stays quite consistent and I don't have to worry about like converting my footage back. I just find that works like the best for me because I just don't want to spend that much time color grading. I like to keep things pretty simple. So I hope you guys have a camera that is able to do that because it is life-changing. Another kind of filming tweak that I make that I feel like I get a lot of questions on is about like ISO, or basically how I kind of like set my exposure. So number one, you want to have like pretty good lighting. I am shooting directly behind, or I'm facing my window. So if you don't really have good lighting, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. Maybe get some studio lighting. I have always really struggled with studio lighting, so I try to avoid it as much as possible. Something that a lot of people get confused over is what you should set your ISO to. So instead of setting your ISO to, just auto and letting it go, wherever it wants, what I like to do is like for my specific A7C is to set limits. So my minimum is 100 and then my maximum is 6400. So when you like hike up your exposure and it gets like a little bit gritty or like grainy, that is basically what the limit is for to help avoid that. So once that's set up, like I have my min and my max levels set, all I really have to adjust is my f-stop. Basically, the lower your f-stop, the more light will be allowed into your camera and the more blurry your background will be. What my Sony a7C camera does on the ISO auto labeling that I see, on the viewfinder, it will start blinking. So they'll either tell me like two things, like I have way too much light coming in that it wants to go under the minimum value, or I have not enough light coming in and it wants to push it above the max value that I set. So right when I see it blinking, I will just, adjust my f-stop to either like allow more light to come in or add less light to come in, pretty much until it stops blinking, and then I just like continue filming and we are all good to go. As far as YouTube vlogging goes, those have been like the really major changes that I've made that I've found are very helpful. I feel like specifically when it comes to vlogging and you're just like moving around a lot, changing your background, really trying to capture like raw and real moments, like you do not want to be messing around with your settings too much. It will just get very tedious and annoying, and it is not going to make you want to film, which is what we don't want. The next topic I want to talk about is creating your filming space. So as you can see, this is my own filming space, but as you can kind of tell, it has a lot of like personality to it. I have these like two little cozy lamps. I love like colorful, vintagey, almost looking anime inspired posters, which are all the ones that you see behind me. I really like a more warmer toned kind of videos. So my lights actually are light bulbs that are a little bit warmer, even down to like the wood of my room itself with my little entryway shelves behind me. I didn't pick like any kind of like stark white. I definitely would never pick like a black. And even going like a step further from that into actual colors, like I love green. I'm obsessed with the color green. So naturally I have a lot of like pops of green in my room. Like I literally just bought that Eddie Bauer backpack that you see behind me. Even something like this is a little intentional. It's like this little spring onion pen that I'm using to clip my mic onto as like a little microphone. Just kind of like not focusing so much on you in in the frame. Obviously that's like a very big aspect to it, but the frame goes beyond you. And I feel like when it comes to YouTube, you're like really inviting people into your space. So not that like I'm trying to be exclusive, but there's definitely like a certain kind of person that I feel like would enjoy being in my space. It just adds this like element of relatability that a potential person that comes across your video might be able to resonate with. Just like asking yourself, what are those elements in your room that like really showcase you, or like maybe what are things that you can add that can really showcase your personality without you actually saying anything. So I think if you're specifically going into vlogging, take some time to actually think about like your setting and your background. It really does help to add a lot of like flavor and taste to your video. It's really helped me create a more stylistic approach to my YouTube videos. Just take a look around your room, see what catches your eye, see what shows your personality, see what stories come out of the things that you own. And I think you'd be pretty surprised just like how far those things will actually take you in differentiating yourself on YouTube. The next topic that I want to cover is how I film. And I feel like you guys think that there's some sort of like magic or like secret recipe that I have, but I honestly film things pretty chronologically. It's really not that complicated, but I will break it down for you guys just to give you guys a little bit better of an idea. So the first thing that I asked myself are, what are my key scenes to create this video? So basically how I would define key scenes, I don't even know if this is like the right term for it. I just kind of came up with it while I was like making my guide. Basically, these are the scenes that are like the meat of your video. So for example, in this video, it's like all of my individual topics and like talking sequences. So super high level, your key scene should really draw from like whatever purpose of your video is. For example, in this video that I have right up here, which was like organizing my creative work and just like finding my rhythm again, when you kind of break down like that video, you can really like see my individual key scenes, which were like the beginnings and me starting to work on my portfolio, like learning a new platform, which was Framer at the time, some of the current creative projects that I've been kind of juggling and managing. And then I think to close it, I showed you guys like an actual walkthrough of my finished portfolio. So as you can see, that told like a very definitive story, and that's like what your key scene should kind of look like. And then the second step I want to say is like adding flavor to that. So for me, this is like often in the form of B-roll. So a lot of like detail shots, like shots of you like not, you know, directly talking to the camera like this, more showing versus actually physically telling. So that's why I mentioned like just take some time to observe your surrounding filming space, because you'll be able to find those little pockets of things that you can film outside of your key scenes to showcase more of your personality and just like really invite the viewer into your space as you're like sharing whatever it is you're going through. And just as like a quick tip, and I think this is also really, really great if you're really uncomfortable speaking to a camera, because it is a bit of a learning curve. Like it is a very uncomfortable process, but a video format that I think is like really, really helpful, like if you feel like you're lacking a lot of confidence, is creating like a favorites video. And I say that in relation to this topic is because you'll get familiar with both your key scenes as well as your B-roll in a way that's very simple. In a favorites video, the key scenes are very straightforward. Like if it's a more specific topic like your clothing or like your outfits and stuff, it can be broken up into like tops, pants, accessories, stuff like that. And then the B-roll that you layer into it is like, you know, close-ups of your accessories, close-ups of the texture of your outfits, how you style it. Like there's just so many elements that you can like potentially add and like get familiar with what that looks like. So I don't know, I filmed my very first favorites video like a month ago, and I feel like it was a really refreshing process. And why I mentioned it's like also a really good way to like get your confidence up in terms of like speaking to a camera and getting comfortable with that, is because when you're talking to a friend about something that you've been recently obsessed with, you're probably not really overthinking or struggling to come up with stuff to say. It just flows really, really naturally. And I think that's one of the best ways to do it, because you get a lot of experience filming a lot of different angles and B-roll. You can really make like a favorites video quite visually appealing depending on how much effort you want to put into it. So in terms of how I film, that is generally how I go about it. This next topic is also combined with the previous one in terms of like, I want you guys to think about it as, you know, you go through your filming process in chronological order with your key scenes and your B-roll and like all that good stuff. So basically this topic is all about just getting as many shot angles as possible. Like I feel like a vlog itself is like quite dynamic, and it's not going to be very dynamic if you're just like leaving your camera on like a tripod in the same place for the entirety of the video. So getting multiple angles really, really helps keep with the pacing of a vlog, keeps things looking interesting, and really helps like your audience like feel like they're going through the entire process with you. So I'm gonna very quickly go through each kind of shot type to think about. So the first one is an establishing / ultra wide shot. It really just shows like more of like a time and place or like a setting. I feel like these particular shots don't really require you to be in it, just really meant to give more context as to, you know, what the setting actually is. Next up, I have the wide shot, and I don't really know if this is like an actual differentiation between the two, but this is just like how I think about it whenever I'm filming. In my wide shots that I kind of shot list, it's like a shot with like me actually in the frame versus like my establishing shots. I'm not really in it. It's more of like a setting and just to like get the vibe of like the area that I will be in the vlog. I feel like the great thing about wide shots is it really shows your subject and how you interact with your environment. So yeah, that's kind of how I differentiate between like establishing ultra wide versus a wide shot. I don't really think it's like that important to know like the difference. It's just kind of like whatever you feel like your video needs, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Third, I think we have the medium shot. I think definition wise, medium shots are pretty much like from the waist up, but the easiest way I would describe like medium shot is this is like your FaceTime-y kind of shots. The closer you are, I feel like as the subject, the more personal the video kind of tends to feel. So if you're talking about like maybe something like very personal that you want to like share onto YouTube, like it'd be kind of weird if you were like shooting that full body like quite a distance away from the camera. Like that just feels very unnatural. Like you wouldn't talk to someone in real life like that. So yeah, just like keep asking yourself, like when you think of your key scenes, when you think of your B-roll shots, like think about what kind of shot it would require. Like does it need to be more personal and like intimate, or like you showing what you're doing from a distance, what matters more? Which leads me to I think 4, which is close-up shots. So these are primarily, I would say, like B-roll shots, unless maybe like you're doing some kind of like walkthrough or something like that. I feel like these are really good like transitional shots. Like for me, close-up shots are like really those moments of like stillness. I love using like these kinds of close-up shots for like transitioning between scenes. I think the really big difference between like close-up shots and like extreme close-up, which is the next one, is I feel like they show a little bit more emotion than like a close-up shot, if that makes sense. Kind of paint a picture, like you can have a close-up shot of your little mug and you pouring coffee into it. An extreme close-up would be something like, you know, the steam that kind of like comes off of the coffee, the actual like liquid texture of like it bubbling on the top. That gives more notes of like taste and texture and just like that warm, cozy vibe of like having like a hot morning cup of coffee. Those are, you know, the 5 major ones that I feel like you should think about as you're filming. And they also don't need to be like really long sequences either. If you wanted to showcase you working, something really easy that you can do is like a medium shot of you like waist up working from the side, a close-up shot of like you maybe like actually typing on your keyboard, and then maybe like an extreme close-up of like the light coming in or something like that. Each one of those sequences could easily be like 10 seconds long, so it obviously does take a little bit more time, but it adds so much more like visual variety to your video, which when you get to the editing stage, it'll be really, really helpful. And I also think like based off of my experience with YouTube, like people really appreciate those like little things and like the little pockets of effort that you put into your video to make it more aesthetic or visually appealing. That is basically all the tips I had for you guys. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you guys like this kind of like video format. I actually have never done like just like a sit down talking straight through like a topic video like this, feeling like I'm talking to you guys on FaceTime. Again, I did make a complete guide. That one is like way more detailed. I feel like I just high level picked like the main topics that I think were like the most helpful. But the guide is really for those of you that really want the like step-by-step walkthrough. It's like a very practical guide. I really wanted to make it that way. This is actually my very first time making a guide, so I'm pretty nervous for how it will go. I don't even know if like anybody will be interested in it. I really tried my best to make it as practical as possible. It is an actual depiction of what my entire filming process ends up looking like. And if you do check it out, thank you so much. And I hope it helps. If you made it this far into the video, you are an absolute trooper. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in part 2. Bye!